This is level 90 to 95. This is Ice Crash Glacial Hammer, and I have made some major updates to the build. This will most likely be the last of this series as the league is ending and items have become obtusely expensive. So I'm going to go over what I did here, changes I made, and where I stand in path of building and objectives I accomplished based on the build. So let's start out with just going like this. I have finished my ascendancy. I went after Sanctuary. This provides enemies that are within consecrated ground to take 15% more damage whenever I stand still. I create consecrated ground. And since I have to stand still to use both Ice Crash and Glacial Hammer, that means I constantly have consecrated ground for any enemies I'm hitting. And this is especially good for bosses. So I added in some tattoos. Any strength over 400 doesn't provide any additional bonus, so I replace them with additional physical damage to amplify damage. I have added in a Thread of Hope. This allows me to take both Divine Judgment, Sanctum of Thought, and Holy Dominion, removing these three nodes right here, which is elemental damage. This 22% elemental damage is simply taken over by this right here. And then it provides more, and then I get all the other nodes as well, so great trade. What else? I have added in a total of 1 and 2 cluster jewels. Those are already there, but I am in place for the next 5 levels to take another set of cluster jewels. I have an impossible escape allocated right here, which has allowed me to take Eagle Eye, Prismatic Skin, Soul of Steel, and Kinetic Impacts. This gives me a total of 3% total elemental resistance, additional crit and accuracy, as well as chance to deal double damage. A couple of these might be, I think these two might be taken out later and just left with these two, or I might remove it altogether if I find I don't need it. But for now, it is in place, and it's really nice. Additionally, over here, I have a chance to do triple damage. Increase auras have increased effect on you. And I had some life on there originally, but I just replaced it upon hitting 95 with this up here to get this. And that grants 7% more life. So granted, I got a bit extra life from that. I can still take the plus 50%, plus 50 life. And I think those are the major changes I have made. Additionally, in terms of gear, I have crafted this Eventuality Rod, which grants me more power and endurance charges. And this is basically a perfect craft. The only thing that's not perfect on it is actually the physical rolls themselves. But everything else is like the stats are exactly what I wanted. It's all tier 1. It's an amazing item. Still using the taming, still using Ash, Frost, and Storm. I've added in Arn's Anguish into the build. If I didn't mention that last time, that provides me with endurance charges as brutal charges. But because of the interaction with Ralakash's and Patience, this cool thing takes place where I automatically have maximum endurance charges. So I have 8, and that gives me additional 32% physical damage reduction and 32% to all elemental resistances. But I can still gain 8 brutal charges. I just automatically have them, so it gives me both. This is an awesome interaction right here. I found this by scouring different builds through PoE. Through PoE Ninja, looking at just different melee builds. I've added in this. I purchased this one. This is the only item I haven't technically crafted myself. And I am actually working on another craft right now. I'm not sure if I will complete the one I'm currently working on, but I'm not sure how much more I'll go beyond that. I'm just attempting another armor. The level of socketed skill gems is fine, but it's not the best in the world. It can be better. This takes care of my my attribute caps that I need, adds more cold damage, life, and chaos resistance. I have met all the all the stats that I was looking to meet, I've met except one. I have 90% physical damage reduction. If I click my flask, which is 2, I have 73% evasion. My objective was 70. All my resistances are capped except chaos. I'm only at 31. I would replace this or this and have chaos resistance on it. I haven't crafted it. It would most likely be the Carnage Heart. In terms of this, I can increase my DPS more by replacing Ash, Frost, and Storm with I have Panapatakan. I have whatever. I don't know. It provides something like 4 million more damage. I have not done that, but since I don't drop the tonens except for on bosses right now, I've just left Ash, Frost, and Storm in place. So I think those are the majority of changes that I've made. Oh, and I'm elemental resistance immune, which I think I've mentioned before, but yeah. Going over to Path of Building. Path of Building, I have, this is the exact same tree. I've already have it updated. As you can see, the skills are exactly the same, and the skills, everything's set right. So I have, I didn't mention the skill changes. So Ice Crash, I now have increased crit, 21. Added cold is, I already had that one. Awaken elemental damage with attacks, shockwave, and pulverize. Those are all the same. I could up this a bit more. My full DPS with Ice Crash is sitting at 13.6 million, which I exceeded what I wanted to do, which was hit 5 million DPS. So I'm at 13 million. That's great. If I go over to items and do my weapon swap, Glacial Hammer, even though it's on the staff that the previous Ice Crash was on, which is a Skullbane Eclipse staff, I have Glacial Hammer, increased critical damage, Ruthless support, Ice Bite, Trauma, and elemental damage with attacks, and that takes me to 10 million. I did see what would happen if these would switch places, and it takes a bit of configuration. So I'm just going to click save here because I haven't done anything. So I'm going to go ahead and Ice Crash, remove this, disable, Glacial Hammer, include in full DPS, and then socket it in weapon 1. Then I want to go over to items, click here. If I were to put Glacial Hammer in the eventuality rod that I crafted, my DPS is closing in on 20 million. As it stands, it's 10. If I was just doing bossing, I would probably switch the skills around as they have. If I go back to skills, it's 4 red, 1 blue, 1 green, and the same thing, 4 red, 1 blue, 1 green. We are going to go back to include and socket it. Ice Crashes in weapon 1 enabled, and then that's with both of them combined. That will never happen, so that doesn't make sense. Enabled, it is enabled, but it's not included in full DPS. And then this is socketed in weapon swap 1. And then if I go back to items and Skullbane Eclipse Staff, that's Glacial Hammer, and that's Ice Crash. And it's back to where it was. Conclusions. For the build, I am pretty satisfied with it. It is hard to push, at least this league, it's been I have found it very hard to push melee too far. And I think that's simply because the amount of modifiers, like when you start a map. So for instance, I'm still working on leveling strategy. I have all these things that take place here, and some of these are very painful. And as melee, you have to jump in to the middle of that combat, which is why elemental ailment immunity is so important. But if you're doing ranged, you can either off screen or clear just barely on the edge of screen, and then you clear everything sometimes for multiple screens over, depending on what you're doing, what build you're playing. Or rangers are notorious for being able to do this, which is, I assume, why they're so popular. I love playing melee. I wanted to try something different. I've enjoyed this build. It was actually very, very simple to level with. Leveling wise, if I could recommend anything for leveling, it would be using Ancestral Call with Ancestral Protector with Ancestral Call support, and then 2 melee skills added onto it. And then you can use Ice Crash to stun them as well and freeze them while that's happening. So, as I said, I've greatly enjoyed this. This is probably the last update. If I get any further, I will post another, but everything has gotten tremendously expensive because the league is done in about a week and there's not many people or not too many people playing at this point. So gathering resources, I have to do everything myself. I normally do that anyways, but for like crafting purposes and stuff where I might acquire a base, the bases have gotten substantially more expensive. Everything is substantially more expensive right now. So I will see what I can do over the next week here. And I think I will probably at least craft another body armor and maybe attempt a second amethyst ring to see what I can do with it. That will be it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have comments, feedback, or anything for the build or ideas, please feel free to drop them in the description. Thanks for watching.